If anybody's expecting the next 5 years to be good, I don't know why you would think that, right?
So what do you, flesh it out for us?
So Israel and Iran is not over, not by a long stretch. The conflict either goes covert, and there's more covert action between the two, or it continues to fester as on and off overt activity, right? But Israel needs to stay embroiled in conflict. Donald Trump is benefited by Israel being embroiled in conflict. And the only way Israel is going to win back the support of Khaliji Arabs who are staunchly in support of Palestine, the only way Israel builds back that relationship is by continuing to have conflict with Iran or ending their conflict in Gaza. Which one are they going to choose of the two of those, right? They're not going to stop their conflict in Gaza just to win back the support of Khaliji Arabs and the Abraham Accord.
I mean, they've got to stop at some point.
They've got to stop at some point, but
there's not going to be that many buildings left in Gaza.
Well, it also, the end goal was never defined.
No.
So how do we know?
Well, they've got to stop at some point. This would be a great time to stop, because what they've done is they've kind of distracted the world from the horror that's happening there and get to look like the good guys. This would be like exactly the time to stop.
Except when they stop, there's more bad news after that, because now it's actually counting the bodies and seeing the true devastation.
But they've got to stop at some point.
They have to stop at some point. I don't disagree with you. But what I'm saying is right now they have a choice. Do we win back favor with the Arab community by helping Gazans or by continuing to put pressure on Iran? It's way easier to win that support by putting pressure on Iran.
Here's what and again, it's just me testing your argument. But the problem is that President Trump has been very successful with his base by claiming a quick, rapid victory, and then there's a ceasefire, which is, I believe, why he was so pissed off when the ceasefire was immediately violated. If this goes into anything that looks remotely where like the people on his right can go forever war, that's a very bad look for him. Isn't he going to apply a lot of pressure to Netanyahu to kind of calm down?
This is the Ukraine-Russia argument. Donald Trump understands that sitting on his pedestal, he can say, I need the two of you to get along. And when the two of you don't get along, he can say, you guys aren't listening. I'm no longer part of this. That's exactly what he did in Ukraine and Russia. So he can come in, he can say, I need Iran and Israel, you two need to stop this. I've done my part to end this. Now you two just need to be adults. And then when they don't, he's like, oh, not my problem anymore. But I'm going to keep selling weapons to Israel. Right? And that what Donald Trump's base doesn't want is for America to be in a war. They love it when America flies a bunch of bombs and like, especially after a big army parade and hey, and the pictures look great. Right, you got all these stealth bombers flying in formation on the map, which is not how they actually fly in a combat situation. But it looks great. That's what his base wants. His base wants like, oh, we're in the headlines again, and Trump's in the headlines again. America's strong. They just don't want American troops involved. They don't want American troops dying. If a B-2 would have been shot down, that would have been a bad day. Right? If a plane wouldn't have come back, that would have been a bad day. If we would have missed the target, that would have been a bad day. That's why it's so humiliating when DIA comes out and says, we actually weren't as successful as we thought we were. And then Trump's like, DIA doesn't know what they're talking about. They're the Defense Intelligence Agency. They know exactly what they're talking about. And their job is to tell you the truth, Mr. President.
Well, before we ask you the final question, you've got a book coming out in September. We're both I don't know what's going on. We're looking forward to reading it. Tell everybody a little bit about it and where they can get it.
Yeah, absolutely. So my book is Shadow Cell. It's my operational CIA memoir from my time at CIA. It's been 4 years in the making because CIA tried to block it from publication. So one of the things that we have in the US that you don't have here in the UK is First Amendment rights. So our First Amendment right protects American agents from being able to talk about our operations as long as we don't go into classified information. So CIA deemed my operational history and my wife's operational history, my wife is the co-author for the book, also a CIA officer, a former covert officer. CIA tried to block it because it said that the entirety of our operational history was classified. We worked with them to try to show them that that wasn't necessarily the case. And after 3 years of what was continually being more hostile collaboration, we just decided to retain an attorney and threaten to sue. And if we would have sued, then it would have taken the entire book project into the public justice domain, and they didn't want to do that. So instead they allowed us to publish our story. So Shadow Cell, our CIA memoir, talks about things that nobody's ever heard spoken about before. We talk about modern tradecraft. We talk about terror tactics that CIA pulled from terrorist elements and that we adopted to new operations. It talks about a mole in CIA that's never been disclosed, and it's all within the last 12 years. So it's one of the most modern CIA memoirs ever written.
I'm looking forward to it, man.
Sounds awesome.
Thanks, guys.
Final question is always the same. What's the one thing that we're not talking about that we really should be?
Before Andrew answers the final question, at the end of the interview, make sure you click the link in the description, head over to our Substack, where you'll see this.
Is it true that the CIA and intelligence community in general is actively trying to undermine Trump's presidency?
What exactly is the West, and mainly the US, doing to figure out exactly how close Iran was to getting a bomb?
How do Air Force pilots safely and reliably fly missions like this, which have a 30+ hours duration?
I think that the biggest conversation topic should really be Europe, and nobody's really talking about Europe. It's across Europe that I see the next 10 years of democracy really being tested. As parliaments are dissolved and prime ministers and presidents are voted in and not voted in, as Europe struggles with breaking away from the United States in terms of building their own strength and power base in a future NATO or in a future union altogether. I really think that the future of democracy is going to be defined here in Europe more so than in the United States, and yet people don't talk about Europe.
Tell me more about that. What do you mean exactly, the future of democracy?
So consider what happened in Germany, where the chancellor wasn't immediately ratified. How does that happen? How does a country vote for a chancellor and then the officiating body doesn't go in line with the people they're supposed to be representing?
Well, I didn't follow this. I must have missed this, genuinely.
So what was it, 4 months ago? 4 months ago, I think it was, the new chancellor was supposed to be sworn in, but the representatives didn't vote to a majority to actually swear in his role as chancellor. So they had to go to a revote.
CIA believes that all people are born with a spy secret superpower. For some people, that means they can win deals. For others, they can spot liars. Some can even seduce lovers. I built a free 3-minute test to help reveal to you exactly what your secret hidden superpower is. All you have to do is click on the link in the description below, take the test, and start using your spy superpower to stay ahead of 99% of people.
Do you recall this, Francis? So this is Germany, one of the strongest economies and strongest
The
democracies
strongest economy in Europe. Yeah.
in Europe, right? The same thing happened in France, right? Macron dissolved parliament. And then you have people in Portugal, and you have Romania, you have Hungary, you have these other states as well, where the politicians aren't identifying themselves based off of their political stance. They're marrying their political stance to being pro-Trump or anti-Trump. You're also seeing it in Canada, and you're seeing it in Australia as well. So the celebrity activities in the United States are becoming like a topic of policy for European leaders to get voted or not, or get voted out. That's not democracy. Democracy, again, statesmanship should be about the state. And there are some countries that are making it about the state, like Spain, refusing to meet the minimum payment that's been forced on them by NATO, saying we'll commit 2.5% to GDP or of our GDP to military spending, but not the 5% that's been assigned to us. So states are starting to determine what's best for them in a way that's unique. But again, I don't think people are talking about this. There was the whole German chancellor thing was back page news at best, and it's there if you look at it, and if you watch the unsteady kind of evolution of Europe. I don't think Europe is headed in a downward spiral, but I do think it's realizing it's been led by the United States, and it no longer wants to be led by the United States, but who the fuck's going to lead it? And what does that mean for a European Union or a union at all?